If this episode doesn't do well, I will say that not only the game was bad, but also the SEO on the name of the IP is really bad too. Hello everyone, welcome to the Weeb initiative. I'm your host, the Weeb. This is the show every other week. I'll be talking about anime, manga, and everything in between. This week, the next thing on my to-watch list was Suicide Squad Isekai, and already to say that repeating this name will not help with algorithms around my platforms, so I'll try to keep it to a minimum. I'm sorry, but the fact that it has a word that most of the platforms don't accept well doesn't help, but easy to say that this anime is something kind of interesting to me at the very least. And really, before I start with this spoiler alert, I'll be talking about most of the spoilers of the things that happen in this show, because there's somewhat of a plot twist by the end that I want to talk about, because it is not really a plot twist if you really think about it, but I'll get there when I get there. Easy to say, this show is kinda mid. I mean, let's start with one thing at a time. So, a little story time. Why did I choose to watch this whole mess? Two things basically. The first thing was, when the first trailer came out, I was kind of intrigued because it seemed kinda good. And then I heard that it was made by Weeb Studio, that are the same guys that do Attack on Titan, Spy Family, and are basically an off branch of IG Production, which I love. So in a way, they had the pedigree to actually pique my interest. But not only that, and here's the thing, right? This is the first anime that has a VTuber singing its ending, and the VTuber is Karaoke Mori. And easy to say that I'm not the biggest fan of Mori, not because really she's a bad streamer, not that, but I just vibe with the newer generations of Hololive, let's say. I prefer Advent and Justice, but the thing is, right, the fact that they chose to actually have a VTuber to sing the ending of this was such a wild, like, what timeline am I living in moment, that I just thought there may be some legs here. Something might be special about this. And now comes to the point that I have to say that this review will be a lot of just my opinion on this, because it's been like 4 or 5 days since I finished this, and the more I think about it, the more not that I don't like it, but more that I despise it for what I think it represents in a way. And I'll try to keep this objective as I can, but I'll get more and more into the yapping later. So before I start, first the stats. So Suicide Squad Isekai was co-production of Weeb Studio with DC Animation, basically a subsidiary of Warner Bros. The original run started on June 2024 and ended on August 2024. It has 10 episodes. From what I gather, it was first released on Max and Hulu, so there was no, like, at the very least for the West, there was no syndication on TV, and basically they released the episodes in batches on different days, and just basically 1 month after the first episode was out, they released the whole anime. With that being said, I want to actually give a special shout out to 2 of the VAs that I really think they did a really, really great job. First is the VA of Harley Quinn, Nagaseana. She, from what I could find, she's more of a new face on this VA scene, this anime VA scene, and as a new seiyuu, I would say she did a really great job. I swear to God that at some point I really thought it was Koga Aoi who did Kaguya in Kaguya-sama, but it turns out she is a newer seiyuu, and she really did a great job. So I would say kudos. And the other one was the VA for Peacemaker, Koyasu Takehito, aka Dio Brando from JoJo. So already you can see that they got a really special cast, more or less. Especially Peacemaker himself was really well, I would not say defined, but he was one of the funniest characters in the whole show. But I'll get there. So basically, quick story summary of the whole thing. So here is one of the disclaimers that I need to make. Sorry for anyone who's a comic nerd. I am not a comic nerd whatsoever. I wish I was, really. I wanted to get into more of the DC and Marvel OG comics before the New 52 and before Flashpoint and so on and so forth. But as things would have it, I could not and have yet not done that. So I'm not really a connoisseur of the DC universe or Marvel universe for that matter. But the thing is, right, so any of the mentions of lore, I don't actually know it. And Suicide Squad especially is one that I don't actually have any, if at all, contact with it, because the only thing that I really ever touched on this was the live action movie they did some, 4 years ago at this point. I don't actually remember when it was released. And to say that that movie was pretty bad, it was kind of not great. And basically the movie, this follows somewhat in the steps of the movie. So they have this whole intro of our main character for this whole show, that is Harley Quinn. She is the main waifu for the whole thing, and basically this becomes a otome-like anime in a way, because she's the only girl in the whole group, and she is the main girl, she's the main character, all things considered. She is captured by Katana and thrown into jail, and after some time, Amanda Waller, who's the director of Argus, goes there and creates a team of supervillains to actually do her bidding in doing a suicide mission, basically. And the movie, they do a kind of thing about trying to unveil some kind of artifact, from what I remember, something to do with Enchantress and so on and so forth. And the cast, in terms of the supervillains that appear in the movie, were really different from this. So in here, we have Harley Quinn as the main character and the one that actually keeps most of her design from the movie, and I think from Birds of Prey too. She has the most, let's say, identifiable design. By design, her design is the most identifiable, but also she keeps most of the newer face of Harley Quinn that we have nowadays, somewhat of evolution from the Injustice part to then the new comics and the new games, and then Suicide Squad the movie, and then Birds of Prey, and so we come to a full circle. And here, I think this is the combination of her design. Her design is really nice. We have then Deadshot, King Shark, Clayface, and Peacemaker, who are then the Suicide Squad, and they are tasked with befriending kingdom in another world, because they apparently opened a portal to another world and so on and so forth. But as soon as they arrive, they find out that they can't really speak the language. Then when they find out that they can speak the language after some time, the kingdom they are supposed to befriend is not that friendly to them, and they are being attacked by a previous, let's say, Suicide Squad that Amanda had sent there, basically composed of other supervillains from the DC universe. Most of them are really small timers, I would say. Most of them I don't actually know. And basically that's the whole thing, right? So they have to fight to befriend the kingdom. Then there is this whole another twist where the queen of the kingdom is evil, and so she's planning to actually engulf the world in death, because she's actually that king, and the whole thing kind of goes on from there. And basically this is a really plotted up situation where, for whatever reason, the Suicide Squad goes to an isekai and have to go through the normal Suicide Squad stuff while also being the heroes of the isekai. It's to say, in terms of plot, this anime is not that great. I have to say, and this is already going to my opinion, because for the story it doesn't really matter. There's the princess that looks like Harley Quinn for the most part, for no real reason outside of one beat at the end where she disguises herself as Harley. The twist with the queen is... the twist with the queen is not really something that you would expect, because at that point there was no real foreshadowing towards the twist, and we didn't actually know who the Undead King was, so that point's kind of rushed. The interactions between the characters are really not great at the beginning. I would say the first 3 episodes of this series were really bad, in a way that it felt like the whole plot was really hand-fisted. It felt, and this is a thing, right? So I don't really know how much the guy who wrote this had a hand in it, but this is co-written by Nagatsuki Tapei, who is the same writer who did ReZero. And I will not enter in the discussion whether ReZero is good or not. It is not on my to-do list here. I personally don't like it, but that's my personal opinion. The thing is, I don't know how much he influenced the writing on this, and how much, and here comes the part where I'll yap a lot. So this is made by DC at the end of the day. DC, Warner, HBO, Discovery, and so on and so forth. So there is a whole, let's say, American interest in this. This is not a truly Japanese production, and in a way, whenever there is, let's say, interference from outside in anime, it generally ends up not feeling like anime, really. Because at the end of the day, it does feel like they are trying to appeal to public outside of Japan, and for the most part, whoever actually, like, the core fans of anime are looking for things that are made for Japanese people. And so there is this, let's say, this gap between what they want to add outside, what they want to actually aim to appeal to outside of Japan, and what we as core anime fans want to actually see from an anime. That is to say that the first 3 episodes are really hand-fisted. The plot doesn't seem to really work all that well at the very start. The first episode, I really think it was just a show-off to how much they could add to the animation for the fight, because the high point of the first episode is both fighting and animation sequences, which are really well done. This is Weeb Studio after all, but at the same time they don't actually help in adding to the plot of the story. And the second and third episode are just kind of bad, if I'm going to be totally honest. We then have the addition of another soldier, but that he doesn't really come into play for the most part. The whole thing is, the story is really simple. It is just, as the title says, a Suicide Squad Isekai, and that's basically it. But different from a normal Isekai, they have the let's say, possibility of returning home way earlier than most of it, and for the most part they stick around for no real reason, and it is kind of weird that way. The plot never gets better for the most part. And towards the end of the anime, I have to admit, it kind of becomes really funny. It seems like after the first 3 episodes, the suits kind of got out of the room, and then the guys who actually do anime got to actually do their thing and make it kind of funny. I laughed out loud on some occasions, and I will have to say some of the gags are really nice, really funny. There is one part where they enter basically a tavern brawl, and for whatever reason, Peacemaker is without pants for no real reason, out of nowhere. It's really funny. The way they get the gags going are really nice, and again, most of the fights are really well animated, really well choreographed. So much so that some of the fights really seem like pandering. There is one fight in specific that I remember that it is basically... So when the anime starts, there is this one fight between Katana and Harley Quinn, and then she later on the anime Harley wants revenge on Katana, and they kind of get to fight until Harley loses her baseball bat, and then Clayface out of nowhere just transforms into a sword, and then they continue fighting Harley and Katana, like, what the fuck? And in that way, it kind of becomes less serious and more silly, so much so that it becomes way more of a comedy rather than just an action isekai anime. But again, it doesn't... This doesn't allow the plot to actually develop. And in many ways, the plot doesn't evolve much after that, because none of the plot points actually gets explained, none of anything gets evolved, or there's no development whatsoever. That's the point. And basically, and this is where I talk about the twist at the end, and then I will talk more about my opinion on the whole thing. So there's one part in the anime where, and this is a thing about watching a lot of media and kind of starting to, like, if you do what I do for the most part, you will get this kind of feeling where, yeah, I know that some important character will appear at some point. So they show the Joker at the beginning of the anime. I personally do not like the design of him inside this anime. Personally, I don't actually like the mouth tattoo, but that's on me. And after the first episode, he doesn't actually appear at all outside of some flashbacks and some dreams that Harley has, and for the most part he's absent for the whole of the series because he wasn't captured, only Harley was captured, and so he was not thrown into this new world, and from what we can gather, he would not have access to going into this new world because it is inside of a military base and whatever. The thing is, right, at some point in the anime, you just go like, I think they will add Joker at some point. And lo and behold, comes to the very end of the anime for no reason whatsoever. It turns out that the whole thing, the whole scheme, the whole of trying to destroy the kingdom, then destroy the whole world and create this whole mod of chaos, everything was because the Joker came to this new world and got some weird power that nobody explains. And at that point when the Joker appeared, I was like, well, yeah, this plot is just a mess. I just gave up at that point, but again, it was at the very, very end of the anime, like 2 last minutes of the last episode. He appears, basically sets up this, this was all my plan all along, and it kind of was pretty bad in that way, but that's not the point, right? This is just a detail. So now I want to discuss a bit of context. So before I even start with this, let's get back to the root of the problem. The thing with doing this kind of reviews, and this is the second episode of the year and I'm already at this point. So the thing with doing this kind of review is that I want to do an objective evaluation of the quality of an anime. So I try always to judge on art, animation, plot, music, and so on and so forth. And I always try to take out context of the whole, let's say, environment that surrounds the anime, because at the end of the day, what really matters is the piece of media that they have there, and not really the context that it is developed in. Because 20 years from now, nobody will actually remember whatever the fuck this was, or better yet, whatever happened while this was being produced or when it was released, what was happening actually. And this goes for every anime, but in doing that, I think that I miss sometimes at some points that are really important to evaluating an anime. And when I'm talking about Suicide Squad Isekai, there are two, maybe three main things that I need to actually touch on to actually build a bigger picture of what the hell this is and how well it kind of completes its objective, more or less. So the first thing is the game. Now, if you are listening to this January 2025, you will know that the game Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, which was the major release of Rocksteady after the Arkham Asylum series, was basically the biggest flop they had, one of the biggest live service flops we had in 2024, only beat by Concord, really. And it was a AAA game which had a pedigree and basically had this kind of potential to actually go hard and actually be a live service, but ended up being a really bad game for multiple reasons. I will not get really into the detail here. And it basically flopped within 1 year of being launched. It was up, and most people can attest to it. It was up for 1 year because the season pass promised, or the published promise, I don't actually remember the details for that, promised 4 seasons of updates, which basically meant 1 whole year of updates. Be as it may, they delivered the updates and then announced that the game was going offline. With that said, I cannot, and I think that it would be foolish of me to say that this anime does not have a direct connection to the game. And in doing that, I can say that although this wasn't like delivered late, I don't know if delivered in such a way that would breathe a new life into the game, because, and here again, I don't like the numerical kind of score that people give anime nowadays, but this is basically the standard we're going with. If you go to my anime list at this point, the overall grade for this is 6.5, I think, which is pretty low. So you can see that the majority of the public that actually reviewed this kind of thing does not like it, which each for their own. But again, the plot's terrible, the comedy gags are kind of funny, but outside from that, the anime doesn't have that much to it, and the animation is good too. But again, the rest of the anime does not live up to the animation and the comedy. And then we go to the second bit, where I think this goes against the bar that was set, and I'm obviously talking about my beloved Cyberpunk Edgerunners. So when we look at the case study of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, I will not say, because it is not really fair a comparison, and I don't think there is an objective way that I could actually compare the two. But where Edgerunners was made by Trigger, this was made by Weeb Studio, with the caveat that I think that some kind of corporate suit had a hand in this. I cannot confirm this. This is just my opinion, but I'm pretty sure they held back at some point. I'm pretty sure that at some point in the writing, someone held someone else back and they couldn't go as hard as they wanted, because this anime has the feeling that it wants to go hard, but it does not. Whereas Edgerunners just goes. It just goes, chicken loose in the fuck pasture, just runs around and does whatever. And that's how we end up with characters that we all remember, the situation that we all remember, a memorable story that nobody will ever forget for the most part, and so much so that everybody that played Cyberpunk after watching Edgerunners, everybody feels a cathartic relief on the last mission whenever they kill Adam Smasher. And in that way, Edgerunners created so much more of a space, so much more of a breathing room for Cyberpunk. And when we look at Suicide Squad, it did not achieve that for Suicide Squad the game, because again, where Cyberpunk came out broken and so on and so forth, one of the most broken games ever at launch, they kind of got together and actually fixed it, so much so that a lot of people consider it so much better now and so good as a game now that it is fully fixed. But they never did this to the game Suicide Squad. And this is all to say, right? I think in a way, in some kind of, I don't know, hallelujah move, like just throw shit at the wall and see if it sticks. They tried to do an edge runners here, but they did not achieve it because the writing is not as great. The anime itself doesn't feel quite right. The style of the characters of the Suicide Squad, especially, they do not match with the rest of the fantastical kind of fantasy isekai stuff, because it is all medieval normal fantasy with magic and so on and so forth, brutes, furries, and so on and so forth, orcs, and it doesn't really match. I wish, and this is a sentiment that I had a lot of while watching this, I wish they actually did a normal anime of the Suicide Squad. If they kind of just got the Suicide Squad to do a normal kind of mission in the normal world and maybe see more supervillains and, God forbid, some of the heroes, then I think it would have been a much better setting, much better everything, right? So much better setting, much better anime, much better plot, because at the end of the day, again, the plot is pretty mid, it doesn't make any sense, and it's just a mess. Whereas if they did a more concise, more down to the ground, like down to earth, feet on the ground, normal Suicide Squad stuff, it would have been much better received, I think, and much better developed in a way. There's that, and then there is the fact that also they kind of give the hint that there could be a second season. I hold to myself that that is basically bullshit. It will not happen because, first off, right, so late mid 2024, there was an announcement that they were cutting everybody basically from inside of HBO, Warner, and so on and so forth. And I would not doubt that a lot of people involved in this project are not really working at Warner anymore. That's one thing. Second thing is, given that, and again, this is my opinion, this is a theory, this is not something that I can confirm, but given that this has some kind of connection to the game and the game is going offline, I would not expect them to actually do a sequel for this. I would watch it still, but probably won't happen. And for the most part, the anime is not bad, but it is not great. It has its moments. It is kind of funny when it's funny. It is well animated when it is animated well. You can actually see some parts of the episode where they actually saved on the budget and then where they splurged it, which is okay in my book. I think it is just fair, but at the same time, again, not really that great of an anime. I think that for the most part, all the characters did their thing. I would say that shot was really not developed at all. Both that shot and the soldier that accompanies them, Rick Flag, they are both not well developed. The rest is pretty okay. I think Clayface is kind of funny. I think Peacemaker is especially really funny. The fact that he's voiced by the same guy who did Dio was unironically so funny, because at the first moment that I heard him, I was like, there's no way they actually got the guy to do it. And there he is. He's the boy. And he does the most egregious stuff every time. And it is funny in that way. I think that King Shark was just a comedy relief for the most part. It doesn't have any kind of big implication in the story. And again, I think Harley Quinn was really well done for the most part. There are some parts where I would say they kind of forced her script a bit too much, but at the same time, it is really okay for the most part. The vast majority of the scenes that she has, and that's basically 100% because she's the main character, she's pretty okay. I think the VAs they did a hell of a job for the most part. And then I need to talk about the music. So basically, the opening song, I think it's called Other Worlds. It has no lyrics, and for the most part, I didn't actually get to research who did it, if it is an actual big band that I may know, or if it is a small group. I don't actually know. And it has no lyrics. It is really weird in that sense. It feels like a normal kind of opening, but not having actually a singer feels kind of really wrong in a way. Now, talking about the whole reason why I first piqued the interest, it piqued the interest of me to watch this whole mess. Talking about the ending, Mori, Calliope, Go-Getters. It is a really nice song in a way. I really think it fits more so to the fact that the visuals that they add to the ending, I think they are spot on. That being said, the song is not my favorite. It is pretty 7 out of 10. It's competent, and I think a lot of people will like it, but it's not the special thing for me. Then again, really nice song. The animation, again, really well done. Weeb Studio is one of the top studios nowadays. I think MAPPA may have swept a lot of people under the rug, but Weeb Studio is one that still holds on to the quality that they have with Attack on Titan, Vinland Saga, Spy Family, and so on and so forth. Again, they are basically an off-branch of IG Productions, so I have a special place in my heart for them. Really like them. And I mean, that's basically it. This is the review, more or less, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. So again, thank you guys for listening, thank you guys for watching. Please like, please share, please follow, depending on the platform you're in. Please join the Discord if you can. Please follow me on Twitter and the other social stuff that I keep in the description. And I hope you guys stick around for next time. Bye.